Welcome to the Neuro Strategic Coaching Institute. Thank you so very much for taking time out to be with us here today in this webinar.
Today, we're going to talk about the 3 steps to use timeline therapy and NLP to deeply transform lives.
And accelerate your business too. I'm Dr. Mario Garcia.
And I'm Coach Mario A. Garcia. And we'd like to thank you so much for taking the time. We know you could be anywhere in the world right now, but you're here with us and you're ready to grow, if that's clear. So here we go.
Let's rock.
So who is this for?
Well, for those who want to make a difference in themselves as well as those around them.
It's also for individuals looking for tools that will create immediate, long-lasting change that lasts.
And finally, for leaders, managers, business owners, coaches, therapists, licensed mental health counselors, psychologists, educators, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely. Now, there's no limit to who can learn some of these techniques and who this is aimed for. But given so many of these people are already in that space where they're wanting to make a difference with individuals already, this is a great way for them to add some new tools to their bag.
Absolutely. And you're probably here because?
Probably because you have a passion for helping others and want to fulfill your purpose by assisting those around you achieve their greatness.
And you're already having success in affecting people around you, but want to help people evolve even quicker.
And you continually seek to learn and grow. You recognize the benefit in expanding your skill set by adding tried and true tools for change.
That's right. And if you ever secretly wonder whether or not you're just another average person who isn't good enough to successfully pursue your dreams, guess what? Then this training is for you.
Now, before we get started, what we want you to do is we want you to, what we say, clean the slate. And what we mean by that is completely empty the cup, clear everything out of your mind that you think you know already.
Yes.
Now, as it says here, some of the information contained in this training may sound familiar, but if you think you always know something, then you're going to miss out on possibilities for new greatness. Yes?
So in this training, we're going to show you how to, number 1, transform communication to transform your reality.
Number 2, we're going to eliminate toxic emotions and sabotaging patterns.
And finally, observe body language and read people's minds.
We're going to go deep. Now, once you apply this,
you'll be able to help yourself, more importantly, and others release the negative BS. No, it's not what you're thinking. It's the belief systems from the past that could be stopping them from their future, even the stuff they can't remember.
Yes, and once you apply this, you'll also be able to truly get what people are saying and why they're saying it.
And you can recognize behavioral patterns that can help you tell if people are interested in what you're saying or even making stuff up.
I think that might be a little useful, and we'll talk about that as we get into it.
Absolutely.
Now, our intention behind this training. Now, there's nothing for sale on the training, but there is an invitation.
And if you want to take a deeper dive into this work, just book a call with us. Call NSCI.com.
Right. So there's the link there to call NSCI.com. And through there, you can set up a call with us directly. And we can talk about, whatever's on your mind. So from now on and all the way down the presentation, you'll see that quick link. So if you don't remember anything, but we know you will, won't you?
Absolutely.
You'll remember to call NSCI.com.
So here's our promise to you. To add value to your life in exchange for your time by giving you information and tools that you can use right away.
Absolutely. When we do any of our trainings or even on a general coaching call with any client, if you're not leaving with something tangible, something actionable right away, to do right away, we feel that we haven't done our job. So that's why we commit this to you.
Everything we do is in an accelerated learning experience format so that you can walk away not just with information, but a deep understanding so that you can put it to action immediately. So let me tell you what this is not. This is not about money. However, money can be a natural byproduct of this work.
Now, this is also not a motivational push. This isn't, a cheerleading class. We're not here to just tell you you're doing a good job, even when you're not. So this is not by any means just a motivational, inspirational thing to, give you energy. Again, we mentioned sustaining, lasting change,
Absolutely.
which means it's going to sustain a long time, not just be a push for the moment and get you, amped up for the next 2 weeks.
Not a pump up, hey?
Yes.
And it's just information or new and untested techniques. No, that's not what this is.
Right. So these techniques we've tried and we've utilized them in ourselves, and we'll even share with you some feedback from some of our clients and some of our past graduates on how they've used these techniques or a collection of them in their classrooms, businesses, and personal lives. So meet the Marios. Who are we? Pretty much that's what we become. We just become the Mario. So the way to set the distinction is that he's the Dr. Mario and I'm Coach Mario. But I'll let Dr. Mario go first. He started this thing after all, right?
Well, this thing started back, in the early 2000s. We were looking at how could we empower individuals to see what they could not see so that they could then become what they were destined to be. And so we started creating the courses. We created the Coaching Institute, and we started training coaches in what we call neurostrategic format. So it's utilizing the power of the mind, utilizing applied positive psychology, looking into the saboteurs and all those things that could be measured with actual criteria. And so we looked at how can others model excellence, because we've been able to do it for ourselves and for many of our family members, definitely for our clients, whether they're in business, in many church organizations and nonprofits. And then we just started to take it to another level with our own bodies. And so what you see here is what?
That's us doing a little bit of a Spartan weekend there. So that's a little bit about our organization, and you can see all the swanky credentials right there across the bottom. We pride ourselves in being an actual institution that hands out actual certifications, not homemade ones with just a company name and it's just valid with us. These are recognized institutions. You see right in the center, the International Coaching Federation, and then the American Board of Neuro-Linguistic Programming, the American Board of Hypnotherapy, and as well as the Board of Timeline Therapy. So all of our certifications and our programs are accredited with a major or recognized body, if you will. But overall, that's our organization. But my name is Mario Garcia, right? I mean, if you haven't put it together yet, this guy's my dad. He likes to say he's my brother, but maybe that flies for some people.
Hey.
But my name is Mario. I got into this area of about 2014 when I started coaching and got certified as a coach. Married, 2 kids. I love life and I live for my family and to assist and to serve others. I really got into this because I myself was at a point when I was just ready for something new and just had to seek how to do it for myself. That way I could bring it out to others. Mm-hmm. So I live in Miami, Florida, long walks on the beach, all that jazz. You know the deal.
Yeah, and it's exciting because in working together now for almost 5 years now, mm-hmm. we basically been working on the pillars that back in the early 2000s, I created the NSCI, which was the vision of having a vision and being able to hold it, creating what we call alignment, being in alignment with our core values, mm-hmm. what we say we want to do and what we teach, we practice ourselves. And then obviously creating impact, taking massive action. And then finally that 4th pillar, which is what we call legacy and creating a legacy today. And that's why I'm so honored and proud to serve with my son, because we're doing that together and we're actually modeling the excellence that our mentors have shared with us.
So what is our why? Now, that's a question you'll hear a lot. And what's your why? What's your reason? What's your purpose for being or doing whatever it is you're doing? You have to figure out what that is for yourself. We're going to share a little bit about our whys, mm-hmm. but always remember, what's your why? What's your purpose? Why are you doing whatever it is you're doing back there?
Well, coming up through being in a city like New York, where I was born in, and then my parents decided to take me to Puerto Rico at an early age. I was looking and trying to find myself, find my identity. I did have some good people from churches and organizations in my life, but I still was lost in the storm because I didn't know where I wanted to go until I decided to join the United States Army. Actually, that's the photo in 1976 at boot camp at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. One of the interesting things of why I do what I do is to see what people cannot see within themselves so they can become what they're destined to become. And how did I get to that why? Well, in 1976, I was first assigned to Germany, and I had this sergeant. His name was Tommy Tucker. And Sergeant Tommy Tucker immediately was asking me, why are you here? What do you want to do? And who are you? When he asked me those three questions, I had a blank stare. I knew I wanted education and I knew I wanted to help people, but I really and truly didn't know how to navigate that personal growth and development. But he showed me the way. He became my mentor, he became my coach, and he said there were two things people cannot take away from me. He said they can't take away your faith and they can't take away knowledge. He said knowledge is really not power, it's what you do with it. And so that started a track in the United States Army that ultimately led me nearly 2 decades and retired as an Army captain, aviator, but most importantly, in 1988, prior to my retirement, I had 3 wonderful years that started in 88, training university students that wanted to become leaders. And that's where I saw this vision of seeing what other people can't see, their gaps, so that they can create a better version of themselves.
I was in corporate America for many years in my long life, in my young 20s, and this picture here, my little wise, amongst many other ones now, this little guy right here, it's my son Jordan at 1 year old, and at that time, I had finally kind of hit a place where I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know where I wanted to be. I just knew there was something more than what was already going on. So having the birth of my son, not myself, but bringing him into this world, I really started to seek new options. And I went to some different, personal growth events. And that's where I found my new purpose. And it was about doing what I could for myself, to be a model of excellence for my son, to then, be able to use those skills to better myself, better my family. And that puts me where I'm at today, with where my why is now my daughter and my wife, as well as my son. And that's why I do what I do, and I do it for them, through them. They allow me to do it. My wife supports me in everything I do. She's a fellow coach herself, but they're all a big purpose, a big part of my why and my purpose, rather.
So let's get started.
So what we're going to do is do 3 steps, talk about 3 steps on how to use timeline therapy and NLP to deeply transform lives.
Techniques that we have used to change the lives of our clients and how they've used it with their clients and their businesses, but most importantly, how we've used them to change ourselves, because you can't give what you don't have. That's one of the philosophies as a leader that I instilled in those that I worked with for so many years, nearly 3 decades, actually. And so Mario has picked up that torch as well, so that he can teach, as he says, his son and his daughter and our family members, creating that legacy today.
So step 1, transform communication to transform reality. One of the phrases we always say in all our trainings is the words we declare become the house we live in. And we're going to elaborate that on that some more right now. With meaning, what is the definition of meaning?
Wow. Well, it's what is meant by a word, text, concept, or action.
Absolutely. So every day we are assigning a meaning to every single thing that goes around us. What happens, around us on a daily basis, what people tell us, how people treat us, or how we act or react to scenarios, the environment, the people around us, our boss, your sisters. Everything is a choice of what that means. Absolutely. To move forward.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting is to, in this space, discovering what is the meaning behind the meaning, what is not being said.
This is something you may have seen before. You might know them as your 5 senses, but in NLP, we call them modalities.
And there are 5 primary modalities: visual, auditory, olfactory, gustatory, kinesthetic. And there's another one that we don't have on the chart, but it's called the head talk, auditory digital. It's what you say to yourself.
Correct. Your self-talk. So
Self-talk.
again, you know them as your five senses, but we like to call them the modalities. And why are we talking about modalities? Because with these five senses or these modalities, you are establishing what something means. Now, and you're going to see it how it comes even deeper as your brain filters it all, but it all starts with the modalities.
So Mario, how is it that two people can be raised in the same environment and subjected to similar experiences, yet have drastically different results? I bet you see it in your two kids.
Yeah. I mean, we see it everywhere. I mean, we can hear success stories of people that have came from the gutters or the slums or some of the harshest cities and environments in the world and be wildly successful. And we're not just talking about, you know, musicians and movie stars. We're talking about people going to law school and people becoming politicians and so on and so forth. But how is it? If you really think about it, what's going on? And if two individuals are exposed to basically the same or similar, right? Because not everyone can live through the same things.
Right.
What's really creating that end result?
Well, we like to say that it all starts out with what we call in NLP, the NLP communication model. It's really all about how our minds process information, because as we receive an enormous amount of information, the first thing that really happens is people make pictures in their head.
Absolutely. Now, if you take a look at the NLP communication model, you see this nice little head here. First step we're going to look at is the external event. As we see right there, it's coming in through his eyes. Once you're witnessing the event, obviously we have the other senses, so we can hear, we can smell, and all the other things as well. The other modalities come into play, but it gets filtered.
Absolutely. And those filters, there are several. We'll talk about just a few of them, right? People delete information, they distort information, or they generalize. So when they generalize, you hear people saying, or you always, or you never. And there's time, space, there's matter, there's energy, there's language, of course, memories, decisions, values, beliefs, attitudes, and actually what we call meta programs, how people do the things they do.
Meta programs that's a whole nother webinar, so we're not going to go too deep into those, but these are some of the things that can affect the thought process in an individual. Now, that's so much information, which is why we use those primary filters of deleting, distorting, and generalizing. It's almost like it's a coping mechanism, because if you were to take in everything all at once, you wouldn't be able to communicate or to respond effectively. We're not saying it can't be done, but if you were using all your senses at one time, it would be a little bit difficult. And we like to always mention Superman, where how he can hear long distances and see long ranges. And if you remember some of the old movies, when he gains all this, when he has no control of the senses, it's overwhelming. So this is what we do to go into whelm
instead of overwhelm.
Perfectly fine, right? So it's so much information. How many billion bits per second?
Over 11 million bits per second. And the human mind can only process 126 bits per second. That's about 5 to 7 chunks of information at a time, maybe 9. And so what happens is when our filters kick in, we create what is called an internal representation. We call it for short an IR. And that IR is based on the meaning that you start creating based on all those filters. That produces what we call a state. Now, what happens in the brain, obviously, there's some chemistry going on, neurons firing, the state is created. That state then converts into a physiology. What does that do? Produces an outcome that's called a behavior.
And so the one thing, if you think about it, if you didn't know about it before you knew about it, is that your state is a big deal. And that's why even if you remembered anything in your past, whenever you may have lost your temper or lost your cool, you can remember someone saying like, don't do anything rash, or you have a lot of emotions and I know what's going through you right now. What they're trying to do is trying to keep you in a decent state, because when you are not in state, or the ideal state you need to be for the scenario you're in, right? Because you can be in a different state that's appropriate for a job, or that might not be appropriate for home, or vice versa, right? If you're the boss, you can't go around and start barking and demanding orders with the wife and the kids.
Not going to work.
Might work for the kids, but someone else may not agree. But when you're not in state, you're not really making the best decisions possible,
Right.
because you're not clear-headed. So you want to always make sure you're ahead of your state, in control of your state rather, and therefore
You get a better result.
exactly.
And what we want is
I couldn't have said it
success.
better myself.
We want success. I remember when I was going through flight school, the first thing my flight instructor said was, your attitude determines your altitude. How high you go and how successful you are in life will be determined by that state of mind.
So if we think back to the question on the previous slide, how are two people subjected to the same or similar environments and experiences different? Look at all the different options here, right in the center of the brain here, in the center of the head here. Language, memories, decisions. Even if alone, just language patterns. What if someone's mom or dad said, do whatever you can because you can do it and you'll be stronger and more successful than I could ever have been, as opposed to the mother saying, you'll never amount to anything.
Wow.
Could have been just language alone on a daily basis consistently, right? It's not about changing your life completely, especially if you're here with us today. And again, I want to thank you for being here and spending your time with us. But it's not about the one decision you made that may have altered your life, but it's the decisions that you make on a consistent and daily basis that are really going to affect your end result.
Absolutely.
And language is hugely powerful for that, as well as other memories and things that have happened. But just that's the answer to that question is right in there. Everyone has different memories, language that they've been exposed to, language that they tell themselves, values and beliefs. If you only know what you knew, then it would be the norm.
There you go.
And normal means what? You know, they say it's a setting on a dryer.
Absolutely.
But even, I don't know, the new dryers, there's so many knobs. I don't know.
Oh, too many. Can't get it. But the reality is that what we see it and hear it in social media and in news media today is that people are consistently being offended and blaming peoples and persons and places. So I just want to ask you one question. How would your life be different if you could pretend that you were responsible for everything good and bad that has happened to you in your life? What would that look like for you?
Yeah, we want to think about that one. Remember, all this information over all the years since the day you were born that you've taken in all this information. If you could think to yourself, this life I'm living right now is because of my choosing.
Personal responsibility.
How would that benefit you in the long run? To only be in control of what you knew you could be in control of, because you can't be in control of what you can't. But sometimes there's things that we're not in control of, and we're beating ourselves up about it.
When is now a good time to stop beating yourself up?
Yeah. When we are holding ourselves accountable for something, we can be completely at cause and not the effect, and really put everything we want to into action and be accountable for ourselves and understand this was my slip up, this was my bad, and this is how I'm gonna regulate it. This is how I'm gonna fix it and alter my course to get my end result.
This is how I'm going to reconcile it. And that's taking responsibility. That's about creating. That's about designing, as opposed to blaming and reacting. So really what we're talking about, Mario, is the secret to communication. What is it?
The secret to communication is not about talking, but about listening. And this is so profound, because it's not just about listening to an individual when they're speaking to you. If we bring it down even to our health concerns and things that go on in our own bodies, it's about listening to ourselves. It's about listening to what we want. It's about listening to our bodies when there's dis-ease in our systems and we create anxiety or we create stress for ourselves. Because if we really thought about it and we really broke down what's creating anxiety and stress, and I'm bringing those two fabulous words up because that's what people are bringing to our table now more than ever. But if we really broke down stress and anxiety, it's what? Lack of preparation, disorganization. So there's anxiety and stress about things that could have been avoided for the most part. There's things that can't be avoided and are unavoidable. But the secret to communication is about listening.
And taking time to think about thinking in order to listen to yourself. Because if you're blaming other people and you're talking about how people, places, or persons are doing things to you, perhaps it's a good time to reflect on what was your role and responsibility in the experience itself. So some of the people that we can introduce are really, really making a difference in the lives of actually starting off. Let's talk about young people.
Absolutely. We want you to meet Kelly here. So that's her right there. Now, Kelly joined us last year on our annual retreat, the leadership retreat we had.
Mm-hmm.
We hosted in New Mexico. And that was her first event. She has since gone on to go through our coaching certification. She's gone through the whole suite. Go Kelly.
The NLP practitioner.
NLP practitioner and even master practitioner. So
Absolutely.
she is now a certified master practitioner of NLP and NLP coach. As well as a timeline therapy practitioner as well. So the great thing about Kelly is that she is teaching and creating, assisting and co-creating the wave of the future. She is a school teacher.
She's a teacher. She teaches, well, she taught the 4th grade. She taught 3rd grade last year here in Florida, and she's doing some amazing work.
She's taken some of the NLP tools that she's learned, and she's already applied them in the classroom. She took learning state and some of the spelling techniques of NLP and already started utilizing them. So this is just a quick share from her. It's a little handwritten card from Daniel. His body language and mindset went from no smiles, hunched shoulders, and I have tried and I can't, to smiles, confidence, volunteering to speak in front of the class, shoulders back, and ready for the 4th grade. So it was just amazing to hear. Obviously, we hear so many great things in business and people getting wildly successful with money and growing, but the education one's one that we always like to bring up when we get these, because they're just, it's really just the future that we're assisting in creating. And Kelly's just a model example of what she's done over there. And if you read the card, I'm not sure if you can read it. If you're on your phone, maybe it's a little small. It says, "Thank you, Miss Cannon, for all the strategies. I feel more confident going into the 4th grade." And this is at the practitioner level. Before she even went to master practitioner, she took the NLP and education section, broke it down, put it in her classroom, and she got results right away. And we know you will too.
Absolutely. So let's talk about step number 2. Eliminate toxic emotions and sabotaging patterns.
Nobody has those.
Of course not. Right. The stories we tell ourselves.
Emotional mastery is one of the highest levels of success. That's something I always like to say, because if you can master your own emotions, then you can move forward with anything with what, as we talked about, the right state, so you can be most effective in whatever it is you're going to deal with, whether it's patience with the children or patience with your boss or patience with your employees if you already are a boss.
Or patience with yourself.
Absolutely. So here we have a bunch of dots. Now, what these dots represent are your memories. Now, again, we're going to keep bringing back some of these things you heard already. We talked about meanings. Your memories have no meanings until you decide consciously or unconsciously what it means to you.
Wow.
So otherwise, you have all these memories that were floating around in your head, right, until you decided to give them a meaning.
And what we call that is a gestalt. And a gestalt is a sequence of significant emotional events, an SEE, that are all linked together. Imagine, if you will, a pearl of necklace with each pearl representing a significant emotional event in your life.
Right. So if you look right under the word happiness there, you'll see there's 4 memories, right, that have been put on that pearl necklace, on that gestalt, and that's what represents happiness. Now, as we start to take some of these other memories, we can start to establish some of those memories are from sadness. Some of them are love, guilt, disgust. There's a myriad of emotions that we feel. Now, again, since the day we're born, we're associating meanings, and we're always evolving, and that continues to change as we get older, as we do more personal development and growth within ourselves. Because if we stopped when we were children, it wouldn't be the most beneficial. It'd be good for that age, right? We always like to say, well, if I crawl to the end of the table, right, as a baby, and I look down and I see hard white tile, and then I fall, then I'm going to go, okay, pain is equal to white. Right? So anytime I see white, I might freak out until I can associate a new meaning to that. And now pain is no longer associated to just a color, because I've learned more about myself, and I'm no longer a toddler or an infant even at that age.
Right.
And I'm able to alter what my gestalt may be for associations of pain.
So you basically release the negative, significant emotional charge, if you will, in the gestalt, and replaced it by taking the learnings through the new information, which obviously gives you an opportunity to create understanding, and you can make better choices. So now you've made a different choice, a choice to be happy, or a choice to love, a choice to give grace, if you will.
So what can we do, right? We see our guy here breaking the chains. What can we do about those memories that we've already associated to anger? We've already associated to pain. So we call them SEEs, or significant, it's an acronym, I know there's a lot of them, the significant emotional events. What can we do? This is where timeline therapy comes in.
And this is such a powerful tool, whether we're working with businessmen, physicians, chiropractors, leaders, or just moms and dads, or as we've already shared with children. It's extremely powerful. And the reason why is people continue to do things. We call those meta programs, right? We mentioned that earlier. And some of the patterns they're running like on autopilot. It's their internal processing system. And that's because every memory that your mind has recorded has gone into what we call the unconscious mind ever since you were born. And the unconscious mind keeps those memories, it stores them, and it does present them up when you're ready and in alignment with your conscious mind to get the proper healing. And so here's what we're able to do with this powerful technique, neuro-linguistic programming and timeline therapy techniques. We're able to eliminate all the toxic emotions and sabotaging patterns by going back to the root cause and walking away with the learnings. And I cannot overemphasize the power that we've seen time and time again.
If you are a coach, if you are a therapist, a licensed, if you are in the business of helping people, you may know that sometimes people can get hung up on some of these big, significant emotional events, and that it's even created who they are or who they think they are based off of a limitation on some of these past experiences. But as we said here, we're able to eliminate all the toxic emotions and sabotaging patterns by going back to the root cause and taking away the learnings. And if we look way at the bottom, the negative emotions stay where they belong, in the past.
And that's powerful, because what we're not talking about is you're going to erase their memory or anything like that.
We don't do that.
It's going to be the negative charge associated with those 5 powerful negative emotions: that anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, and shame. And you're going to replace it with the learnings that will help you to move forward and get rid of, release those saboteurs and release those negative emotions along with it.
We mentioned it before. What does it do? Once we're releasing everything and taking away only the positives, we are being accountable.
Absolutely.
And then we're able to just walk away with what we need, leave the past behind, leave everything else there. It takes minutes to do to release the pain, the emotions around one of these particular events. It's a fantastic technique. It's one of the strongest ones we have in our book, and it's so quick. It's insane what's more insane is how fast the change happens. And the most magical part is that when the people, when the individuals that you're making changes with say thank you so much, since it's them doing the work, you can just point the finger right back and they'll say thank yourself because you did all the work.
Absolutely.
You guide them through the process. It's NLP, timeline therapy, hypnosis, all those programs and all those things. They are do with processes. Nothing is done to you. We don't do it to you. We're not going to do anything to you. This isn't, black magic or voodoo. It's done for themselves, and that's why it's also so sustainable and long lasting, because they're making these changes consciously with their unconscious mind and integrating it into knowing that I have a compelling future. Absolutely. With a possibility, and what's behind me will no longer affect my future, and honestly leave it there. And
the most beautiful piece of it, and obviously I can attest to this as a clinical practitioner and professor of behavioral sciences, is that we don't even ask them for their story. Absolutely. We're not putting them into emotional floods or to re-experience it in that way. That there are other therapies that perhaps work for some, but this is such a wonderful opportunity for people to trust a process that we say always 100% success rate.
Yeah,
with all our clients.
1,000%. So
Absolutely.
If you're looking to get people from the past, right? Because coaching is about what? The future. If you're for my fellow coaches, coaching is about going into the future and creating your destiny and building your legacy, right? Timeline therapy allows them to go back into the past, because basically Cliff Notes, it's a dissociative reframing technique that allows them to do what we mentioned before, go back to the past, take away only what the positive learnings and leave the rest there. And they will literally leave that session with all the pain, all the anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, shame, whatever it is that they need to let go, gone.
Gone. Adios. Hasta luego. And what we're talking about is sustaining lasting change. That's the beauty of it.
So we want you to meet Victor. Victor is a phenomenal coach. He's worked for one of the largest coaching companies in the world, transforming. Oh my goodness, Victor was a monster. Victor,
trainer, speaker,
author. I think he had
martial artist,
90 clients a month before he started selecting down, and the value he could bring people increased, so he had to decrease the clientele and bring up some other stuff in the game. You know what I mean? That's what you do.
Absolutely.
So Victor was already a world-class, phenomenal life changer who we have brought in to share the stage, and we've done many things together.
And he went through our coaching certification program as well, and then just recently graduated as an NLP practitioner.
Yeah. So our full suite, NLP practitioner, NLP coach, and timeline therapy practitioner. So this text message, it's a little group chat action. We know you guys have that going on, right? And so it's me, Victor, and my dad here. And so Dad asked the question, "Hey Vic, are you coming to Masters?" I think this is like a week after maybe he just got certified. No, sir. I have a conflicting event, but I will be in Miami for 2 days back to back, conducting 2 NLP coaching sessions on the 5th and 6th
of last month. And what's powerful about that is he said, look, my price point has increased exponentially. Just this one event was over $5,000 in revenue. So we said, it's not about the money.
Not about the money, but the money comes as a byproduct of wanting to serve and help people at a rate and knowing the difference, right? Again, we're not signing up. This is not a 2-year program. This is just come in. We'll knock this. We can knock these things out in the weekend or a couple weekends, right? So Victor came on in, and he was able to just take care of that. I think a week or two after graduation, had his first contract, already $5,000 in the bank for just a quick breakthrough session weekend. And also said, "Hey, can I use your office? I'm going to be in Miami."
So it's a great thing. So it's part of the network, and we love it. So we want to respect your time. So let's take you to step 3. It's observing body language and reading people's minds. Now, obviously for the right reasons. Our bodies do repeated behaviors to access information internally.
So we remember these, right? These are our modalities, right? Otherwise known as the 5 senses: visual, auditory, olfactory, which is our smell, gustatory, which is our taste, and kinesthetic, which is our touch. So again, we brought it forth in the NLP model of communication to just talk about how that is with the information brought into our brains and how that processes into our state and externally to our behavior. Now we're going to utilize it to talk about eye patterns.
Eye patterns. So what if we could show you a technique that you could determine what people are actually sharing with you, truth or untruth?
Yes. When we go to access information in our minds, what we do is we actually unconsciously start to look around and move our eyes in certain particular eye patterns to access that information. So as we're looking at this fantastic picture of this gentleman here with the big eyes and the round nose, we like to teach, and we always like to create this little baseline here, that this is normally organized as you are looking at them, because 80% of most individuals are normally organized, which is how you see it here. Not to say that the other 20% are abnormal. No, they're just reverse organized. So
correct.
80% are normally organized, 20% are reverse organized. So as we are looking at them, to the left is the construct. So top left is visually constructed. Underneath that is auditory construct.
So if their eyes go to the center, and as you're looking at them to the left, it's auditory constructed. Right.
And then down and to the left underneath that is kinesthetic and their feelings. On the other side of the scope here, we have visual recall, their auditory recall, and then we mentioned, Dr. Mario mentioned it before, the self-talk, which is also known as your auditory digital. So if you see something you like in a store and you say, I wonder if they have that in my size or in another color, that would be your self-talk. Again, you're not saying it verbally, you're saying it in your head.
And the recall is important because what we mean by recall is they're accessing their memory, as opposed to constructed where perhaps they're making it up.
So this is where eye patterns become amazing. So when you're looking at the individual, if they're accessing visual constructed, they may be creating something. Doesn't mean they're 1,000% lying, but they are creating something, as opposed to the other side with the visual recall. So if, as you look at them and you ask them a question, their eyes go up into the other side,
looking for that picture.
They might be looking. So you say, hey, do you remember that the boat we used to go on? You know, the one that our friend had? Oh, yeah. The white boat with the red stripe. So they might go, yeah, okay. And the eyes will go up to recall the information visually.
Or you could say, well, you remember that loud engine? And they go, auditory recall.
The eyes would go straight to the left and they would, they're remembering the sound.
There you go.
And then auditory digital and kinesthetic in their feelings. Or you could, so if you ask them, how did it feel when your favorite team lost the Super Bowl?
You may hear a pause because they're obviously, the self-talk is happening, and then they'll respond.
So what you want to keep your eye on, got it? Eyes. You want to keep your eye on their eye patterns because it can be real obvious movements or it can be micro movements. Their eyes can just kind of flicker over to one of those directions as they access that information to give it to you. So why would you want to learn this? I mean, many reasons, right? Obviously, it's great to know if people are lying to us or creating a lot of information more often than not. But as a salesman, if you're trying to give the pitch and every time you ask for information or another meeting time, you get a lot of creation. Yeah, I have a meeting and I can't make it. You know, call me back later. The decision maker is not here. You can know if someone's not interested in your product right away. You know what? I'd rather have the quick no so I can get to my next yes.
Absolutely.
Instead of wasting your time and spinning your wheels on a prospect who's not going to turn out to benefit you.
Or if you're an attorney and you're selecting jury panel, if you're interviewing a client, I can tell you that this slice of information for one of my most wonderful clients, owner of a law firm in Southwestern United States, meant the difference between knowing whether her client was telling the truth or making a lot of his case up. And it basically saved her case. And they obviously made some money where they were looking at possibly not at all. So how can we use this? It's extremely important that we just don't take those looks at face value. How can you truly tell the difference? It's called calibration. You have to ask what we call the deep questions. Peel the onion, find out the meaning behind the meaning, and obviously calibrate everything, the color and tonality of their skin, their lip movements, their brow, the direction of the eye patterns as we just showed you. And so it'll all give you that picture that you want to truly tell the difference.
So you always want to calibrate. Calibrate basically means, as I may have mentioned before, is it's a baseline.
It's a criteria.
So what are their facial expressions looking like before you ask the question? Some people have different types of face, or everyone's got a different face, right? But their expressions may be different, and sometimes emotions can be different. You can have individuals who, there's tears of sadness and tears of joy, right? So we always want to calibrate on their face and what they look like as you get to them and start the conversation or the communication.
How about we give them some calibration questions?
Absolutely.
These are some samples here, very quickly.
Good. So this is how you would practice, and this is how you would establish or know if someone is normally organized or reverse organized. Number one, the visual remembered. Now, what color was the room you grew up in?
Visual constructed. What would your room look like if it was blue?
So this is where you'll see the change as they go from remembered, right? So as you look at them, remembered, the eyes will go one way. What color was the room you grew up in? It was blue. And what if it was yellow? Can you imagine if your room you grew up in was yellow with pink polka dots in there? Maybe look up and create that.
Weird.
And you'll see it, that the eyes will shift from one side to the other.
Number 3, auditory remember. Can you remember the sound of your mother's voice?
And then you'll establish whether they're normally reversed. And so you'll see how they access that information. And then say, hey, well, what would it sound like if your mother talked like Donald Duck? Can you hear that?
Oof.
Again, they'll probably laugh, but you'll also see the eyes go the other direction. Number 5, can you say the times tables for 7 to yourself? Again, so that's self-talk. So that's do it in your head in case they start blurting out 7, 14, 21.
And just notice the way their eye pattern goes and which direction it goes will give you the story. And number 6, kinesthetic. What does it feel like to walk on the sand with no shoes?
I also like to say, do you know, can you remember a time where you stepped on a puddle of water or an ice cube in socks? Right? So it can be an actual feeling or even accessing their feelings. You know, we like to keep ecology in check here, so we don't like to use anything negative. Like, can you remember the, sadness around your first pet? No, you don't want to go there. But these are the ways you can see and calibrate what their eyes are.
So practice it, right? Consciously use it in daily conversation without letting them know what you're doing, that you're calibrating, right?
Right. So the best and most effective way is to just go out and start doing it, right? Go talk to someone in your office, talk to your significant others, brothers, sisters, family members. The first step is to verify if they're normally organized or reverse organized. Hugely important, because if you think they're creating when they're recalling, you're kind of making a mistake and maybe you might assume some things that aren't really going on.
No. We don't assume around here. So make sure to ask some calibration questions and don't forget to calibrate.
From the moment you walk in, you want to, that's we just said it, but we want you to go walk in, see what their face is like, right? You mentioned attorneys. This is huge for attorneys. That's why they come into the courtroom and ask you questions is your name really so-and-so? Do you live at so-and-so? They're calibrating.
Yep.
So then when they hit you with the hard stuff, they see where you go.
Really try it with younger children to really see it in slow motion.
Yeah, the kids will give it away every time. And You're like, oh my goodness, this works. So speaking of children, I wanted to mention Stacy. Meet Stacy Crumrine. She was a recent graduate of our NLP practitioner. And what made her experience so memorable was she brought in her daughter to participate. And she is, to this day, our youngest graduate who actually got 100 on the test. And this is some feedback she left behind.
Oh, it's a wonderful, Stacy Crumrine is an owner of a major staffing company in the West Coast. She says, neurostrategic coaching is hands down the best training I've ever experienced. I don't even know if I could call it training. It's beyond training. It's truly a transformative experience. Dr. Mario and Coach Mario are magical together. Each of them brings a different element, and it's been absolutely incredible being able to be a part of something so exceptional. Thank you so much for this experience. Looking forward to staying a part of the community.
Yeah, so Stacy and her daughter came in and they partook of the NLP practitioner. And so obviously giving the information about how to read your kids' minds to the child who was learning there was really awesome. They played off each other really well. And it was just an amazing experience. But I can't imagine getting exposed to some of these techniques at such a young age.
Wow. And it was an experience for us as well. It was a wonderful learning experience. Yeah. Just imagine what's possible. Imagine what your life will look like in 1 year from now, when you're looking back over everything that has happened, both personally and professionally.
What will you feel? What would you see? And what would you hear?
What fears have you overcome? What exciting opportunities have you created? And how confident will you feel about your abilities?
Being able to imagine and think about what's possible is huge. It sets the tone for what you're going to do. If you didn't, sometimes when you don't think you can do something, you won't take action. So imagining, right, goes a long way. You have to envision what it's like. And some people even think this way, like, I'm going to create the goal as I've achieved it and then work backwards and set my steps. It works, well for some people who like to process that way.
Absolutely. And one of the questions that unfortunately, many people don't ask themselves when they're creating goals or when they're planning is, how will you celebrate? How will you celebrate the wins, the 90-day outcomes goals, your yearly and annual goals, when your life is significantly different? That's just an amazing opportunity where if you put into your strategy, how will you celebrate after you get the next promotion, or once you get your degree, or once you marry the person that's the person of your dreams, if you will, right? Because NLP works in life, relationships, business, and in all areas of life. It's the model of excellence. Richard Bandler and John Grinder in the 70s researched all of these wonderful individuals that were in the helping professions and took slices and the best pieces of the science to create this model of excellence. So giving yourself that opportunity to create strategies and new patterns is what I call becoming not you. It's not that you're going to change who you are. It's you're going to change the patterns and the behaviors based on the limiting beliefs and the limiting decisions that have basically been plaguing you all your life, or maybe a section of your life. Like Mario said earlier in the program, right? We behave in different states, in different contexts. What if you could align yourself to have those superpowers that are really and truly within you already? Those resources are within you. Everything you need is just about the resourcefulness. And guess what? Through this process, you too can model success.
So how are you going to celebrate, right? Taking in just these 3 tips, right, on how to use timeline therapy and NLP, to what would be possible once you've broken through all the stuff that's been holding you back before you thought about it.
Absolutely.
What would be possible if you could maximize your communication and really think differently about everything else that's come into your life and how you've reacted to it? And finally, with the eye patterns, how can you communicate more effectively, even with others, right? Because remember we said listening to them, also listening, observing, watching with your eyes what they're doing, what they're really meaning. All these 3 simple tools put together in practice, right? Because we can know a lot of stuff, but only once it's applied is when we can really grow. Knowing all that 1 year from now, how are you going to celebrate the difference you've made?
Amazing. So today we promised you 3 steps to use timeline therapy techniques and neurolinguistic programming to deeply transform lives. How can you create transformation in others and make the most impact when you are congruent and in full alignment?
So today we covered, number 1, transforming communication to transform our reality with the NLP model of communication. Number 2, how to eliminate toxic emotions and sabotaging patterns by doing some discovery on timeline therapy and how we break through the root cause to release all the negative emotions. And finally, number 3, observe body language and read people's minds with the power of eye patterns. And what are we doing? Just observing how they're accessing the information in their own heads.
So on today's training, you came here for one of 2 things: new knowledge and new reality. So we have a question. If you would like to co-create a new reality with our guidance, when is now a good time to do so?
When would now be a good time to book a call and get some more clarity on what's possible and what could be possible, not just a year from now, all the way down the road into however it is for you to build the sustainable and compelling future that you desire.
And be able to influence others as well to do the same.
That's the most fantastic thing about this model, is because it's not about just making a change for others, but it's done for self. Once you do it for yourself, you understand how powerful it is. You understand how it works. And then you can go out with confidence and certainty that, yes, I can change your life because this worked for me. This is how. These are the people that it's affected. And it's instant. It's right off the bat. It's not like, okay, in 3 months, we'll see how it is here. You leave training, you leave a session, right, and with anyone who has this knowledge, knowing which direction you're going.
Absolutely. And what the beautiful caveat to that is, when we're focusing on the program of the NLP practitioner and NLP coach. Most other programs will teach you the NLP coaching and or regular coaching, right? We're going to show you how to work on you, because when you can work on yourself and you know how these processes work and you can model excellence, you have no other choice but to influence others to do the same. It will grow your practice exponentially. Just remember Victor's story. Already a successful coach, author, speaker. Yeah. And within a week of just the practitioner program, creates a new dynamic in his entire NLP coaching practice.
He didn't think he needed another training.
No.
He knew there's always growth and there's constant, never-ending improvement. But sometimes we get to that point where we may not think we need another tool. Mm-hmm. Well, we don't want to rob ourselves of a gift.
Absolutely.
So you have to give up the life you have you have to give up the life you have to get the life that's waiting for you. Meaning you have to leave the old stuff behind. You have to leave the old patterns, the old strategies, the old behaviors that aren't supporting you to get the ones you want. And giving you some tips on how you can do that today. And there's a lot more that we can have to share with you. So again, we left the site there for you. Call nsci.com if you'd like to schedule a call. We'd like to thank you so much for your time. It really means a lot to us.
Absolutely.
To have you here with us. So like I said, where you could be anywhere else in the world, but you clearly are a person who has a purpose and are looking for something greater. And trust me, there always is something more.
Join us at Neuro Strategic Coaching Institute. And you can do that by booking a call now at callnsci.com. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for investing your time and trusting us with that time. Signing off, Dr. Mario.
And Coach Mario A.
Until next time, thank you.